Hey guys, it's Nikki. It's June, July is right around the corner, and it is time to announce my plans for Camp Nano 2021. As I mentioned in my Writing Goals 2021 video, and I will put a link for that video in the description below, my project for Camp Nano this July is called Operation Fantasy Revamp. And it is, Lord willing, going to be an overhaul of a revised draft of a novel that I have been working on for years. I am super excited about it for a lot of reasons. One, I've been reading a lot this past year and especially recently, and I've just been really inspired by the work of other authors and just their creativity and the awesome things that they do with their worlds. And so I'm just really excited to take all that inspiration and pour it into one of my own projects. I've also made some breakthroughs in the way that I see the story personally. After reading and rereading and rereading and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting the same story over and over again, and it wasn't really getting that different each time, I started to feel like I was taking things for granted in the story and not really challenging them. You get into that situation where there are lots of things that you could improve and make better, but you don't really see them anymore because you're just like desensitized to the entire story. I am excited to finally be breaking through some of those barriers. I'm starting to see the story in a fresh way, and I think that will really help me in the overhauling process in July. Also, I've given this story a break for like months, and I miss it. I miss the characters. I can tell that I miss it because my writing daydreams have gone back to that story instead of being fixed on what my more recent projects have been. That's sort of my writer brain telling me that it's time to dive back into that world and get reacquainted with the characters that I miss so much. Goals. What I am hoping will happen this month. So first, like I mentioned, I want to step outside the box. There are things that I just take for granted in the story that I don't even question anymore, and I want to just look at it with fresh eyes and go over everything with a fine-tooth comb and ask myself, does this really need to be here? What purpose does this serve? Could I rewrite this scene in a better way? Could this scene take place somewhere else? And just have no question that is off limits. Be able to question every scene, every creative choice I made, and decide whether it is really the best creative choice instead of just taking it for granted and rewriting a story that is pretty much just the exact same draft with a few wording tweaks. I like the past draft, but I know that I can go further, especially after all the reading I've done. And I'm just really inspired to take it to that next level, so I hope that I can get there and really bring the story to life. There are some character adjustments that I would also like to make, especially one of my strong female characters. She's a character. She's interesting, and I like her, and she has a very important role in the story, but I just feel like I haven't hashed out her vulnerabilities enough. I know what they are, but I think they could be a little clearer in the story to make her more likable instead of the classic and irritating super strong female character that has no vulnerabilities or weaknesses and is just stubborn and impossible to deal with. I do want her to come off more complex than that initially, but maybe that's something that will have to sort of present itself as the story goes on and we see more of her, so maybe she should be more one-dimensional at the beginning. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I do know that there are tweaks that I want to make to her character to make her more authentic and hopefully a little more likable, even though she's not really meant to be crazy likable at this point. World building is probably the biggest thing that I'm hoping to make a lot of progress with. I've spent the last few months really working on adding more detail to the world and just making it richer and really digging into the cultures involved in the story. So I'm really hoping that that will come through because I'm excited about it, and I hope that it will translate into a more vivid story. But there's always that fear of it sort of bogging down the story instead. Which brings me to my fears. On the flip side, things I'm a little bit nervous about this month that I'm not sure I'll be able to pull off. For one, I mean, my original draft was very, guy-centric. Again, I was super inspired by The Lord of the Rings, which has mostly guy characters and just a couple cool female characters, which seemed fine at the time, and still, I'm not gonna flip everybody in my story. But I do want to incorporate more female characters, not only to make it more realistic, but because, I mean, female characters are awesome. My fear, though, is that if I don't do it right, it will just come off feeling like a bunch of girls thrown in for the sake of having girls in the story, which is not what I want. I want them to be there because they're awesome in and of themselves, which is a challenge, but I'm also excited to meet some new people in the story, so bring it on, I guess. I'm also a little nervous that I will still be stuck in the box. I know that I've made progress, that I am starting to see the story a bit differently, but I know that I'm not all the way yet. There are still a lot of ways that I'm just sort of seeing the story that I've come to know from rewriting it so much and not seeing what it could be. I'm just really hoping that that box doesn't like hinder the creative process or cause me to miss things that I could improve. World building, as much as I'm excited about it, I'm also a little nervous about it because I really don't want it to feel overwhelming in the detail. I have all these new ideas, all these new details that I didn't have in the initial drafts, and I want to sneak them in there, but it can also sort of bog down the story. And I know that that can work when you have really heavy world building detail at the beginning of a story. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming, but it can also intrigue the reader enough to keep them going until things start to make sense. It can also just be a turnoff. So it's a fine line to walk, but I really do want to find that line, and I really want to pull it off in a way that will improve the world, but also not compromise the story or the reader's interest in the story. I'm also a little nervous that my goal to complete a full new draft by the end of the month is a little lofty. I did write a full novel in a month last year during NaNoWriMo, but this is a little different. I'm not just going from scratch, going with the flow, writing what comes to me. And it's not a YA contemporary project, it's a fantasy that has a lot of moving parts, sort of questioning my ability to get all that accomplished in just 1 month. Even if I don't get all the way to the end of a full draft, what I'm really hoping, the spirit of my goal, is that I will just feel like the story is making significant improvements, that I'm heading in a good direction, and that I will get the ball rolling for improving the manuscript over the summer. I may make a last minute switcheroo to my goal just to like lower my expectations. We'll see. My plan. I've only done 1 Camp Nano and 1 NaNoWriMo in my life, so I am not a veteran by any means. Step 1 is, now that I have finished draft 0 of Operation Colors, which video I will put in the description below as well, I am going to let that sit. So that is out of the way, and I'm going to spend the rest of the month of June doing more world building stuff and prepping for Camp Nano. My prep, as far as I have thought it out, will include more world building detail, a lot more world building detail, but also scene cards. And that is not something that I've ever really done before, but I found out sometime last summer that one of my favorite authors uses them, and I think it could be really helpful in this project. I'm going to make cards for all the scenes that I have in my current draft of this project, but then I'm also going to make cards for the scenes that I want to add, or even if I don't have like hashed out a perfect scene idea, just cards for the ideas that I want to incorporate that aren't there now. And then I'm going to lay them out and mix and match and try to make an order of things that is cohesive and maybe better than the order that I already had. Find ways to slip in the new ideas with the old, or just to scrap things. Hopefully that will help me to A, weed out scenes that I don't even need anymore, identify scenes that I'm not really happy with, maybe think of ways that I could either replace them or just ditch them. I'm hoping that seeing them in this way, like with the scene cards, will be sort of a bird's eye view and give me a new perspective again to help me get out of that box so that I'm not restricted by how the story has just always been. Most of my writing usually happens in the evening, so I'll probably keep that going. I'm also going to try, and I mean I've done this in the past, but I want to be more intentional about it, listening to like epic fantasy ambient soundtracks while I write, starting with the Kaladin album, which if you haven't listened to it, I mean, you need to. It's probably like my favorite thing of 2021, no lie. Plus, I am definitely going to incorporate my wooden whip candle because I feel like that just sets the whole ambiance. You've got the beautiful smell and the sound and just the warm glow of light next to your computer. amazing. Other than that, I'm going to try to keep up with reading, especially authors in my genre, so I can just keep those creative juices flowing and stay in the right headspace while I'm working on this particular project. As far as the channel goes, I would love to post writing vlogs throughout the month, so I will do my best to make that happen. I would also really like to do a live stream, but that all just kind of depends on my schedule and work and whether or not I'm able to figure out how to do that in that time. I'm not super technologically savvy, guys, so bear with me. On that note, I want to apologize for any technical difficulties or camera quality issues. I am using a phone, well actually I'm using an iPad, which I know is not ideal, but the camera that we have isn't like amazing and I'm not super comfortable with like camera settings and things, so this kind of just makes the most sense to me. But, confession time. I recently put it together that the camera on the back of these devices is higher quality than the camera on the front, which I did know, I just like forgot or didn't make that connection. The evidence of that can be found in my first couple of 2021 videos. Apologies for that. Hopefully it's better now, but if not, we're working with what we've got here. I'm really hoping to be productive in Camp Nano this year, even if I don't fully accomplish my goal. I want to feel like I have something to show for my work at the end of the month. And Lord willing, I will be able to balance it with, work and life and all the other things going on. But again, I want to surrender it to God too. If it doesn't turn out to be as productive as I'd like it to be, that's okay. As long as I'm doing the most important things with my time, it'll all work out and be fine. I'm just really pumped overall to be hanging out with these characters again. Speaking of which, thank you guys for hanging out with me and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love it if you would subscribe and let me know what you're going to be working on this Camp Nano so that hopefully we can help each other to accomplish our goals. I'd also just really love your help growing this channel, so feel free to like and share while you're at it. Thank you so much, y'all. Happy Camp Nano, and do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.